Hi, this is Pamela Gropey Art, and this lesson is a super easy lesson on how to create a neutral background for any painting. This one is going to be for a bicycle, but you can use this on many things where you just want a rather plain but an interesting neutral background. Now I'm going to be using these two shades of gray and some white. I don't want the grays to be dark, so the white is really going to lighten them up, and yet there's going to be streaks and striations of the gray color in it to give it interest back there. And I'm going to use, this is my palette, I'm going to put the paint on. I'm going to use, this is a plaid one stroke sponge. It has interesting shape, or you can use a regular sponge or a round sponge. I use some gloves so I don't get the paint underneath my fingernails, which it can be quite messy. And I like to lay mine flat because I can really put the pressure on it, whereas if it's up on an easel, I have a harder time with that. So I'm going to get my paints out onto my palette, and the other two are brand new, so I have to open them really quick. But lots and lots of white. And I already have put some extra gesso on here. This was just a canvas panel that was pre-gessoed, but I always add extra gesso to give it a really good background, because the canvases, even the pre-gessoed ones, are still very thirsty and can really soak up your paint. So adding the two extra coats of the gesso, which I have a post on the blog on how to apply the gesso to your canvases to create a great backdrop or base to paint on. Now here, just a little bit of the lighter gray, and probably about the same amount of the darker gray, which is the classic French gray. Now this to me has a little bit of a blue undertone, which I really like. In fact, I like it better than that one. I always am changing my mind and during something, and then I might not even use that in the next one. So I'm going to get a lot of white paint on my sponge, because this, I'm going to have to get a lot more on here because this is going to be the main color, and I just want the grays to kind of streak in. So I'm going to get a little bit of the lighter gray, a little bit of the darker gray, and then I'm going to just start applying. So I'm just going to streak it along. And one thing nice about the sponge applicator is it makes it go pretty fast. And you see how it's creating the streaks? I'm going to get more white and pull it in. Don't overblend. I got to get more white. This is really got a lot to cover. I'm just going to move it a little bit. Get down. I'm going in with mostly white right now. Sometimes you'll want like to go from darker to lighter. Oops, see, I got the end down here with some paint on it, but that's okay. We're all going to be blending it in. And you see the lighter gray color has a little more brown to it, steel gray, than blue to my vision here. And I keep adding more white because this is a big canvas. And I want that paint to flow smooth. Okay. Am I getting off camera there? I'm sorry. But I just am going, this is a big canvas, so this is a 16 by 20. And I'm going to get white in here and a little touch of the darker gray. You see that? And I'm going to just pull in some streaks. This is the classic French gray. Now this paint's drying very fast in here. So if you wanted to get some floating medium or blending gel to make it stay wet just a little bit longer, so you spread that in there. Now you can see how that has some nice striations, and it gives it some interest. And I like how some of them are darker, some of them are lighter, and it kind of moves this direction. You could also do where you have a little bit darker around the base. Darker around the base. Just blend it up a little bit. Just lightly go ahead and blend it in there. Now there's not any reason that you couldn't come over this with another coat of something else after you've put your design on and you want to change the background. That's fine. This is a fabulous neutral background. And I have mine sitting up on some boards so I'm not getting paint on my protective cover on my table. But there you have a very neutral but interesting, because the striations of color gives it a bit of interest. So I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll come back and I'll put the design on. Acrylics dry very quickly. But that is your basic how to put on a neutral background that you can use for many different paintings. It goes super fast, and you can change up the colors as you wish. This could be in blues, this could be in a lot of things. If you wanted also, I'll do another video, just so I don't get this too complicated, where the background, you'll have it lighter in the center and darker along the outside, so you have like a vignette. And like I said, that's for another video. So I hope you enjoyed this video and learned how you can do a simple yet easy background. First, we're going to start with the handlebars. So I have the camera zoomed up a little bit. You can't see the whole bicycle painting yet, but believe me, it's there. And it's been transferred. If you want to know how to transfer patterns to your canvases or surfaces, just check on the blog. I will link it above too. I have a video and post on how to transfer painting patterns. So we're going to start with classic French gray. This is a folk art color, and it's a nice dark gray for our handlebars. I'm going to use a brush. This is the Royal Majestic number 10 that fits the size of the pattern pretty close. And I'm not going to follow the lines exactly. I don't do anything exactly, but I'm going to get close, and that's going to be good enough. Now, I get these Royal Majestic brushes online. You can go to their website, or I found some on Amazon, and they work well. So I have the classic gray, working it into my brush here for you. Excuse me if my voice comes and goes. I've had a bronchial issue. And I'm just going to start here. Now, I start from this side and work this side because I'm right-handed and I don't want to get my hand in things. If you're left-handed, you're perfectly welcome to start from the other side. Now I'm just going to follow the outline pretty closely. And you notice my stroke or the paint is overlapping, not staying within the paint pattern, and that's just fine. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be good enough. I got that a little there. And it gets a little narrower here, so I'm going to kind of push a little harder is all I do. And you'll notice there's a bit of the line left there. That's okay, I'm not going to worry about that. I can either erase that later or take my stroke over it again. And then I'm going to come from this one and do the same. Just following along. I'm running out of paint. I have some on the other side, so I'm just going to flip over, pull it on there. I'm trying to keep a smooth, and that we're totally changed that, didn't it? A smooth stroke. Just following along. You could do it in shorter strokes, make it more impressionistic. That's fine. There's no one way to do this. I'm just showing you how I do it. Now this is going to be a spring flower bicycle So I'm planning on pansies on it, pretty spring pansies. They're going to be in the flower basket. And there we have our handlebars. You notice it's a little gloppy here. Not too worried about it. If you are, just come along, kind of straighten that up. But it all comes out in the wash. Don't worry about little things like that, because the bicycle's not the focal point. The bicycle is kind of the framework for the flowers. Now we have the handlebars. I think I'll paint those the same color as the bicycle. I did one before, and I did them the same color, a little bit lighter than the handlebars, and I didn't, it was okay, but just didn't stand out. And I have this piece here that is the piece that the handlebars hook into or go through. So what I'm going to do there, I'm going to make it slightly lighter, but I'm going to double load my classic French gray and some white onto my brush. Just double loading, dipping a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfectly half and half. And I am going to do C-strokes, a little bit of a C-stroke. And you notice how I'm just kind of making it just like that. So it gives it kind of a round feel. Just a little bit of a round feel. I can go over it. It's a little bit lighter, and it has a touch of highlight in it from the white. We are going to continue on with our handlebars. I'm now going to do the little end pieces, the protective ends, and I am going to do those in Cayman Blue. This is a folk art color. This is a multi-surface color. It's Cayman Blue. So that's going to be a nice bright color. It's also going to be the color of the bicycle. So I have the 1/2 inch Royal Majestic. You can continue with your 10 or if you wish. And maybe I will. I think that one's kind of small for this size brush, but this one is fine. I may, like I said, go back to that other brush, and just fill in carefully, but not perfectly. And there you have the Cayman Blue. It's a little not opaque, but that's okay. We can come over it with another coat. And we'll be highlighting and shadowing later. So I went back to the 10 so I could have a little more control for this size. And we're just making a shape here. Like I said, it does not need to be perfect. And we're just getting that first layer on. Like I said, we'll come back later and do another. And in the meantime, I'm going to go back to my 1/2 inch. I had put it in my rinse water, so I'm just going to dry it out and load it. We're going to do this part of, it's no longer the handlebars. I guess that's part of the body of the bicycle. But I'm going to just follow up. You notice I started inside the lines. That's the way if I push too hard, I'm not going outside and growing the bicycle size. But there we go. And I'm going to come in here, follow this, and that. And there we have that part of the bicycle. So there pretty much our handlebar and stuff is done. So while I have this Cayman Blue, I'm going to come down and do the body here of the bicycle. So the 1/2 inch is still about the same size as the stroke, and I'm just going to follow along. And I am wiggly. So just take that into mind that it's not perfect. I am resting my hand or my palm or my little finger on the surface to kind of steady it. And it would be easier if I was directly in front of the piece instead of trying to work around a camera standing here. But at least that's an excuse I can use. So there we have that piece. What did they call that piece? I'm not sure. So I'm going to continue on. Let me see. This piece right here is not in the camera. So I will move the camera so that those pieces that I'm going to work on next of the bicycle frame is in the camera. Okay, on to the frame. We're going to be using the same Cayman blue and the same brush. And it's the 1/2 inch flat Royal Majestic. And I'm just going to, let me see if this is in the camera down here. Yes. I'm going to start down here around where the petals meet, and this comes right up to the base of the seat. Like I said, I'm at an odd angle, so mine's especially going to be a bit wonky, but that's all good. I go for more of an impressionistic style than I do perfection. And that's a good way to go because it's less stressful. If you wanted perfectly straight lines, you could actually tape off the edges and make perfectly straight lines, but I don't know the reasoning behind that, other than some people like tight paintings. Also, you know, you can keep them a little bit straighter if you're at a good angle. So there's that part of the body or frame of the bicycle. And I probably should have done this first because I can get my hand in here while I'm trying to paint that one since I rest my hand on it. So what the tricky part is going to be doing this one very well because I am working way around the camera. I'm reaching across it, so it's making it a little bit difficult, but it just means I need to be extra careful here. Okay, now what that is like the fender for the front tire, and you're facing it straight on, so that's why it's truncated instead of coming down like this one is the back one. Okay, this is still not dry enough for me to go ahead there and rest my hand, so I'm going to do this back fender and get that going. I'll follow the line there, take it right off the canvas, and I'll do the same here. We're still using the Cayman blue and the 1/2 inch flat, and take it around there. And if you want to take it around on your canvas, go right ahead. Alrighty. So there we have the back fender. So that's still needing to dry a little bit before I can work on doing this one, unless I try it without resting my hand, which we can do. Like I said, I'm not into perfection, and I'll just accept the wonkiness that happens. And just pull, pull, pull. Yeah, it's getting really wonky, but that's okay. We are going to live with it. It all works. And you're probably thinking, ooh, that looks horrible. But just wait, it all comes together. So we'll let the fenders and the blue part, the Cayman blue pieces, dry. So first we're going to go in with the classic gray, just like we did on the handlebars. And we're going to go in there and do the seat. Now you see this right here, this will be a shadow. And so I can see that it's a paintbrush width. So even if I obscure that with the undercoat of the classic gray, I'm just going to fill in the seat. I'll still be able to find where that shadow should be. If you wanted to leave a little space there, you could do that too, but don't fret. over losing exactly where that's at. And you could always put your pattern piece back over if you needed to, if you didn't have the confidence just to come in and bring it in. But you need to learn to loosen up. Nothing is exact. Even that drawing is not exact. It's just kind of an idea of where I would want it. So if it's a little higher, a little lower, it's not a big deal. It makes it your own painting. So I have filled in the seat. And there we have the shape. And now I want to bring in some white. We can let that dry just a little. I'm going to wipe out the brush. And, well, you know, I need this. I'm going to do this down here, but I'm going to go ahead and do that in a little lighter color. So I'm going to mix some white into the gray that was already on my brush. Now you notice I pulled from the side. I didn't dip it in the middle. So I pulled from the side and I kind of blended into my brush. Now I need to dab it off on the corner so we don't have too much, and I will pull this right here down. I'll get a little bit more gray so there's a definition between the two pieces. Not a lot, just a little bit more gray. And then I will make this little piece here. Kind of has a little curve to it. You notice that? I just 2 C strokes. So I still have a little piece of blue to put in here. I can come in later with a smaller brush and add that in. But now I'm going to go up and do the seat. I think it might be dry enough not to lift the paint, but we'll check it. Because acrylics at a certain point will lift and won't let you pull in more paint. So I'm going to go in to the white, and I want it a little streaky, and then I'm just going to add that in there. I reload my brush, a little bit of both, and I'm going to bring this down and around, a little bit more white. And just kind of fill in. I don't mind that there's a darker showing there. Want a little bit whiter, not whiter, whiter here. And if you want to accentuate the shadow, or bring that shadow in, again, I rinse my brush. I rinsed out my brush, and I'm just going to go into the dark gray on the corner, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that, and I'm just going to come in and just restate that shadow, and it's kind of blending because the paint's still wet, so I'll probably have to come in and do that later. Now acrylics dry darker than when they're wet, so that may show up the way I wish it to once it's dry, because right now it's blending into the wet. But we'll wait and we'll put that shadow back in later if we need to. Okay, so we have all of the dark colors, or the dark gray, the seats. The basket is going to be either a basket weave or a wire basket. I haven't decided yet. Okay, we can go in and put in the tire. Black. We're going to go with licorice black. This is a Plaid Folk Art multi-surface licorice. They also have this in regular. Whichever one you have is fine, or whatever black you have is fine. And we're going to do the 2 tires. The back tires here, front tires here. For this I could move up to a 3/4 inch, but I think I'm going to stick with my 1/2 inch for now. And I'm just going to fill in with licorice black. I'm loading my brush. It's pretty thick paint. So I'm going to just follow the lines. Empty my brush here on it. I'm working around the camera, so I'm looking actually underneath the camera, working around. So I'm just gonna follow these lines. I may need to get some medium because this paint is just so thick. Now when I drew on my pattern or transferred it on, I was not precise and straight, so following the lines to be straight isn't going to work for me, but that's okay. Like I said a million times, I'm not always straight and perfect, and if you looked at a tire, neither is it. So I'm just going to unload my brush, going up and down, and then follow the curve of the tire. Now we're looking straight on at the tire, whereas the back, whoops, got my finger in the blue, see? Gotta be careful of that. I rubbed it off. Okay, and I'm just gonna match that up there. And this comes up to this and down. So, just smooth it out of your brush. And you may need to step back and look where you need to add some in or straighten up. Now it's dragging right here, but I don't want it to get any wider, so I'm just going to use the chisel edge of my brush. Okay, so over here, let me look and see if that's in the camera. I'm looking. Yes, we're going to go over there, and we are going to do this tire. Now the tire has an inner rim, a white area, but I'm going to go with right around this and follow the curve. I'm going to touch in some water with the corner. That helps it to flow when it's this thick. And I'm just going to come along and follow the curve. So that I need to sweep it. You notice I planted my finger here and I'm just arcing with my brush. That kind of helps to get a good arc going. And it comes up along the bottom of the fender here. And disappears up into that. Just a little bit more right in there. And I'm taking it around. Now this needs to come up to this fender part. There. All good. Okay. Let me step back and look. Okay, that tire looks good. So we've got the tires. This is going to be in the same gray. I don't want there to be a real focal point there. So it's going to be very loose. I'm going to do the petals really quick. Since I have the black out, this petal is basically just a rectangle. And this one is like a half circle coming down this way. And hopefully I'm in the camera. Am I in the camera? Yes, I am. Okay, good. I got to remember to keep checking that. Alrighty. Looking at the way this is set up, I probably should have done this before I did these so that I wouldn't have to be going between them. But it is what it is, so we're just going to go with it. I'm going to do this in the dark gray. The classic gray. Find out where I'm at in the camera here. Classic gray, a little bit of white. Lighten it up. But I still want it to be gray. And I'm just going to go around this circle. Now you could do this with a liner brush. Normally I wouldn't have as dark a lines with the transfer. And many times I just draw it on with a paint brush, but I wanted you to be able to see the lines and be able to use the pattern, because I know how that helps when you're just getting started out painting. But I'm going to come along here, just going to follow that, making sure I have a good edge. And then we will just come in with the blend, of the white and the gray, and we'll just kind of streak it in there. Just streaky. You don't even have to cover the background completely. You just want that to be a little streaky. Streaky of the darker color going around the edge. Like I said, it probably would have been easier, and I am going to kind of cross over these, but I'll redo that. And right here. And then the center is going to be more white. It's going to have a little bit of gray, but more white than that. My paint is drying on my palette because I got my heater going. It's snowing outside. Great day to paint. But it's causing my paint to dry a little bit quicker. And you see how that's a lighter gray? I need this to be a little bit more. So I'm going to do this white inside of the white tire, or the tire. Going into my white, and it has a tiny bit of gray. I don't want very much gray, but just a little bit. I had put some water on my palette to help my paints. They're drying out. And I'm just going to come along here, and if the black's a little bit wet and it drags in, I'm okay with that. Kind of just gives it a nice texture. And I'm just going to come in here, pull some white in. And I don't care that it's not opaque. That's all good. It's all blending in well. And provides it a bit, like I said, texture. Now here's a little piece that comes down and connects. And I'll do that with a touch of gray and white. You decide how much you want. It's just all good. It's like I said, it's just part of the background with the bicycle. And you can do this with a liner brush, the edge, the chisel edge of your brush. Just pull that down like it's going down to the tire thing. And I'm going to put an indication of spokes in. Say the tire's here, or the center is here. So I'm just going to just kind of aim them. And that's all you need. You don't need to put in straight lines or anything darker. We just want the indication. And that's working for me. Okay. Now we have gotten pretty much most of the basics of the bicycle in. Now I'm going to put the line for the pedals, which is the same as this line, just a little bit of the gray and white. There's no specific amount. Just create a gray color. And make sure you have a good chisel edge on your brush. Chisel edge is that edge, making sure it's good and tight. And just bring your pedal in. Like it has a little thing that comes in there, a little bar. And then this one comes from the center of this section. So I'm going to step back so I can really see what I'm doing. And just draw a chisel line right to the pedal. And that works. And we're all good. So now most of these things are dry. The blacks are dry. And I'm going to do a little bit of highlighting. And this grayish white on my brush will work just fine. And I'm just going to lightly streak. Can you see where my brush is down here? Let me look in the camera. And I'm just going to lightly streak up some white in there. And if you think you have too much of a highlight and you want to kind of tone it down, just go back into your black and just kind of drag it over it. And that kind of blends it in. And you might even want to put a hint of the blue in there, so just touch into your blue and just streak a little bit of that in there. And that just creates some harmony with the rest of it. And it really won't stand out and be glaring in the eyes of your viewer. So I hope you could be able to see that, and it just has a hint of blue in there. And I'm going to go over to this tire here and do the same. I'm just going to add a couple highlights. Now we'll pretend the light's coming this direction. This, having the highlight in the center, kind of draws your eye forward, and then this has just a little bit in it. And if you get too much, again, go back into your black and just tone it down. You can even obliterate it completely if you need to. So the little petal here probably has a good little up at top. This one, just add a touch of highlight. And I'm looking. I got a good amount of black on here, just enough to kind of give that a little dimension there. I'm dragging very lightly, give it a little motion, and if you don't like it, go back over it with the gray. You can always fix your mistakes, your happy little accidents. And I'm going to touch into the very corner of my brush. And I'm going to bring this right around the outside of this. This is a little shadow. And touch just barely underneath that. And that shadow's on the wrong side. You know why? Our light's coming from here. So good lesson. Pay attention to what you're doing. I'll gray that out. Put a little more white in it. And even it doesn't matter too much, just because like I said, this is not the star of the show. This is the backdrop for the flower basket. Okay, that all works. So now we're going to go in and we're going to add a little bit of highlight to this. But before that, I want to fix this area right here. Do you see where I kind of got the gray over top of the blue? I'm going back into my Cayman blue. I'm loading up my brush. Everything is dry over here, so I can really rest my hand on it and fix that edge. I need to get some more Cayman blue on my palette. And this area right here where it kind of is indented, just fix it. Okay, that's still wet, so I'm going to go into my white, and I'm just going to streak along a bit of highlight. If you get too much, you can fix it. Go back in with your Cayman blue and pull some more of the blue in, like here. I don't cut it too blue back here, too white. So there, all fixed. And I can fix right around here and right around here. And then this spot right here, I didn't get it up here close enough. It's all good. Okay, over here, because I was at such an odd angle, that really got kind of wonky. And I'm getting some white on my brush. I got a little glazing medium there, so it flows a little bit easier. And I want to come down more of the center on this one. Okay, that works. A little bit of blue right here, kind of got off. And along here, let's take care of that bar. I'm going to first go over it with the blue with a little glazing medium so that it flows well. So we're going along here. And I notice I made it a little wider. And I'm getting it too wide because I got too much on there. And you know how you fix that? I'm going to show you right now. You can come in, your finger in a cloth. You can do this with a paper towel. And just pull that right up. Because underneath here is, especially the plaid multi-surface, it's got a sheen to it. And it allows you to go in before it's dried and just clean up those little areas that you may make a mistake on. And the glazing medium keeps the paint a little bit wet longer. Now I don't care that this has got a little sheen of blue. I like that shadow that it creates there. So I'm just going to go back in and restroke that. And I'm going to go in with some white. And we will highlight along the top because that's where the light's coming. So I get a little bit of white in it. And I'm just going to kind of dab in some highlights. And if it's not enough, touch a little bit more in your paint. Work it on there. There. It's all moving smooth. Now I wiped out my brush because I want to restate the blues in these. It's not quite as opaque as I want it to be. So make sure I'm in the camera. I'm almost not in the camera, so I'm going to move my camera for you. Okay, like I said, I'm going to redo the handlebars because they're not quite as opaque as I want. And that's pretty easily done. And I just go in there, follow the shape with my brush. And I did this one with a smaller brush. Usually if I have a tighter space, I'll switch to a smaller brush, but I'm being lazy and goofing up a little bit, but that's fine. I will touch in a little highlight. I'm going to touch in up here. Got too much water on my brush, but that's okay. It's all going well. And just a little touch here. So we've got the handlebars again. So let's bring in a little more gray. I have a little bit of the glazing medium, and I'm just going to bring it along and carefully follow the outline. That one had a little too much of a dip there, so I'm just going to So now we want to add some shading and some highlighting. I'll reduce this one. Got the gray, white, and it has a little bit of blue in there from when I did the other. So I'm going to restate this one. And on this side. So it gives it, you see, notice how that's a little slight C shape, and that creates, make it more rounded. And I'm going to redo this one with the Cayman. Bring it in there. I'm rinsing my brush again. And we're going to go along and highlight along the handlebar. So let's see that wet. Yeah, it does it good. We're just going to streak in some highlight. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be blended. Be surprised at how the eye just brings it to the fore. So we'll do a little white in the center of this one. It's a little too much white, because that was just one of those things that happens. So I went and reloaded one side of the brush with the blue. And this blue is getting kind of dry on here. What happened is I had too much water in my brush. But that all works. Okay, that's fine. We can add more blue later. And another trick I want to show you, just really quick, is right along here. Like if you didn't like that, I cleaned and dampened my brush. And then I would just come in here and lighten that by lifting it with that clean. Then you wipe it off, redampen lightly, and pull it up. Pull that away from the side. I'll let that dry a little bit, and I'm noticing that it narrows there. I don't want it to narrow there. So I'll get some more Cayman once that dries, and or the basket probably will overshadow that. Okay. Like I said, nothing is perfect, but whenever you see something you want to fix, go in and fix it. I just put some of the dark classic gray there, and here, this shadow, I want to emphasize it, where it comes on that seat. Get a little bit of gray and white on here because I don't want that quite that dark. But play with it. You can play with it and see what you like. Gives it texture. You just don't want it flat looking. You just, where you just have a flat color. You want texture. You want the light hits it differently. All kinds of things. Now I have I'm going to put some water here. I can use glazing medium for this too, but I've got a little puddle of water there. Drying out my brush mostly. The black here is getting thick from sitting there. And I'm going to try to create a bit of shadow where the metal goes into the metal. And this is totally optional. You don't have to do this. But I want you to see how you can add details that give dimension to your painting. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of a lighter color in here. And then I'm going to dip the corner of my brush in that darker color. Now you could do it just in the dark color, and instead of having the lighter color on there too, but just see if you can add some of that darker in there. Still pretty wet, and it's not going down, laying down there. So a little bit more. Get a little bit more. You don't want a stark black line. You want it to be kind of chiseled in there. See how I'm brushing, and I got too big of a brush. Let me get a smaller brush so you know how to do it without screwing it up like I am, or messing it up like I am, I should say. I'm going to move down to my Royal Majestic number 8 flat, and this will give me the ability to be more delicate. You see how I'm fading it out there? You can do this with glazing medium, floating medium, but you make it light and where it's almost transparent, and you just pull it along those edges lightly. And you just feather it out there. Let me get some glazing medium or floating medium on my palette. Just a touch, just a touch. You can also do this with water, but here's some glazing medium. Put my brush in it, get some of the dark color, kind of work it out. And then like right here, barely touch. And it's a little dark, but just add a bit of shadow right there at that edge. And if you want to lighten it up, which it's a little dark for my taste, you can go back in with a little more glazing medium in your brush. That helps lighten it up. Yeah, much better. And you can work that out. You can, practice with such things and you will learn how to shadow things to give it more dimension. And there we have it, like underneath here, just a touch. I need to highlight in there so it gives it shape. So I will get just a touch. My white has dried, so I need to get more white, but let me see. I don't know. I don't want it white. I want it just a lighter color. And I got it not quite white enough. There we go. Okay. So it has a touch of highlight in it. Now, if any spot, like if the shadowing is too dramatic for you, or if you just don't like it, go in with your color, your base color, and go over it, and it totally takes it away. So that was just an option. You don't have to do the shadowing. I just like to add little touches of detail to give it added dimension instead of it looking like just something stuck on there. Okay, there we go. I am now going to focus on the basket and the flowers. Now, most up here is going to be covered with greenery. So down here is where a little bit of basket would show. And this line's in the wrong place. You see the basket comes down to the top of that. But what I got on my palette, and you can do a couple of browns that you like. I have dark brown. This is the plaid folk art color. And this is butter pecan. This is like my favorite neutral light brown of all time. But I'm going to do something very faint. Like there's the one flower. Like basket would have lines coming down for the weft. And then you would have where you would come between these with I got mostly the butter pecan, but I have a tiny bit of the other brown, the dark brown on my brush. So I just kind of made these little, they're almost a little U stroke. And I'm not really concerned about the opacity because like I said, this is just going to be in the background, and I double load my brush again. And this time I'm going to go halfway between those. No, that's not, incorrect. What was I doing? Okay, so, oh yeah, so this would have a line here underneath. And that's what you're going to. This is very, very rough because, like I said, it's not the focal point, and I may end up covering it with greenery. Now, essentially, you normally would have like all the dark color underneath, and then you'd be going over it. So let's do that. Sorry for I'm getting ahead of myself. I really want to do the flowers. So that's the dark brown. Kind of fill it in. You could put a darker color in there so it's very dark and shadowy underneath there. Now I'm just going to go into that. I can still see my lines here. And I'm just going to put in a very faint bit of the basket weave. So it just is an indication. That's all. On the one I did with the geraniums in the basket, it's much more detailed. And for something where it's part of the main focal point, that's great. In this, it's not. And it's going to have a lot of greenery, and that's just going to show maybe underneath the pansies. So that being said, I'm going to start with this pansy here. And I'm going to, I think I'm going to stick with a color palette of lavenders, purple, and white for my pansies. And maybe a dark blue one. So I'll get my colors out, share them with you, and then we'll start painting pansies. Forgot what I was going to be painting. I need a little white. I have my paint colors here on my palette. I have dioxazine purple. Now they have this in Folk Art Multi-Surface, but they also have it in their latest release of Pure Artist Pigments. These are colors that are pure pigment, and you can mix with other colors to create colors you wish. And I'm just now starting to use them. And they had made them years and years ago and then stopped, and now they're back. So I'm excited to start some new paintings with those because you can mix your own colors and you're not always having to buy several bottles for different things. And a lot of people want that. They want to be able to mix their colors again. And that's what you do with Artist Pure Pigments. Okay, so I have the dioxazine purple here on my palette, and this is light lavender and lavender, and I have a touch of white. Now this, I think I want this one to be a darker because it's kind of further to the back, and darker kind of recedes. So I am going to start with the dioxazine and the lavender. And you know, I want to tell you that you can change up colors. Like if I do this with a darker and I don't like it, I can go over it with a lighter color and lighten it up. So you're not stuck with any one color if you put it down and you're not liking it. Now the Artist Pure Pigment is much thicker, so I'm going to get some glazing medium or maybe some floating medium out to help it to spread. I just slopped it right there. So just mix it in there as you wish. Now I'm going to do the outside of my petal in the background with the dark on the back side. So here I'm going to start, like this is my center, and I just do 1, 2, 3, and I'm doing a scallop stroke like that, you see? Now this is not going down opaque, so I'm going to have to go over this again to get the depth of color that I want. Now I have usually 2 back petals with my pansies, or sometimes, not always. So there I'm doing the 2 back petals, and I'm going to let that dry so I can go over and get the opacity I want. So that's the back petals. Now remember, we have one over here. So while that one's drying, I'll go ahead and do this one, or maybe one of the half ones. Let me make sure you're in the camera for the half one. Okay, this half one can be coming down here, and it can be the light lavender and lavender. I'm double loading my brush. Now if you want a full tutorial on just pansies, go to that. And this is double loading. You see how I get it, both colors on my brush, and I just blend it into my brush. And that makes the 2 different colors on it. Now that's the half petal. So I am going to do this. There's the center, and I'm just going to make my petal here. Make it a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to come around and go and do the other one there. And those also I think would need to be gone over with to get the opacity I want and the color definition. So I'm going to leave that there. And I'm trying to see where I should have got this a little darker. I know there's one here. So I'm going to do that one with the same 2 lavenders, the light lavender and the dark lavender. Well, it's just called lavender, and the other one's called light lavender. And if I want to get that touch darker on there, I think I got too much glop in my brush. But, okay, let's do this one. This one can be kind of tilted. So here's the back petals. And it might be tilted too much instead of a slight tilt, but we'll go with that. Okay, that's the back petals. And I think this is a half one here showing. So I'll do that one with the dark dioxazine purple and the light lavender. So that one I can do like here. And it's going to be facing upwards or a half flower too. And I don't worry too much about that being perfect because that's going to go behind the next petals. So I have one here. Oh yeah, I said there was going to be some draping flowers. And let's see, there's that one, and I think there was one down in here too. And then some petals going this way. So, so I don't have all just one color. I'm going to do some different colored ones too. So I could do white with the lavender. And each time I'm double loading with the colors I'm choosing. And you can choose what colors you want. If you wanted blue pansies or yellow pansies, go for it. You can do those colors too. So let's see, right here, I'm going to do my white and lavender pansies. Or partially white and lavender. I'll show you what I mean by that because it doesn't stay all white. My pansies are a little bit different. I don't try to be realistic. So there is the start of the pansy that's there. So these colors, the backgrounds have pretty much dried. I'm going to go ahead and start on this one here, and that was the lavender and light lavender, and I'm going to just mix it on my palette. Let me see, am I in? Like, you can't see what I'm doing. Okay, let's see, that is in the camera. Let me move this over a little bit this way. And, oh my goodness, my battery's dying. Again. Okay. I got that on there, and remember I moved it, instead of tilting so far, I moved it up to here. And I'm just going to 1, 2, 3 with my brush, and then just do the scallop stroke. And it kind of cut it short, but that's okay. I'll just go right over it and go over it with the next background stroke. And then I'm going to flip my brush. What I mean by flip my brush, instead of having the dark on the outside, I'll have the dark on the inside. And this is going to be the 2 side petals. They're going to overlap the back petals. I'm reloading my brush, double loading. And if I wanted to make the center a little bit darker, I would go into my dioxazine purple. If I wanted to make the center a little lighter, I touch in the white. And then I'm going to make this side petal. Oops, sorry. See, I started to go on the wrong side. I wanted the light on the outside, so redo that and just go over it. And I'm meaning to go over this one. Now, it doesn't matter, there's an extra stroke back there. It's just a very different pansy. So I'm going to reload, redo this one because I didn't get it as big as I wanted. And now I'm going to do this one. And it is going to have the light on the inside and the darker on the outside of it. And I want it to be a little bit dramatic. So I'm going to get some of that dioxazine purple. It's kind of drying. I probably need to get a touch of floating medium on my palette. See, it's just a dot. And I'm just going to put that in there, touch it, and then work it in my brush. And usually I do this from the bottom, but I'm going to do it this way because that's the way I don't get in the way of the camera. And my center, let me see, I don't like that petal completely. There's a little bit more it needs. So I'm going to come this way and finish it off. Now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I want like I said, that purple is really getting thick. It's been kind of warm in here. I'm working it into my brush, making sure I have a chisel edge. Now, I could go to a smaller brush, but I'm going to do it with, this is my number 12 flat, making sure I have a pretty sharp chisel. And on the chisel, I'm just going to drag little spikes of that dark purple from the center and flare them out on these 2 petals here. And then I'm going to do it from the center here and make the little whiskers. I want it to be a little darker. Now if you want it even darker, you let this dry and it will be darker. All right, so I'm going to have to turn my camera off, recharge the battery, and come back and finish up our pansies and greenery. Now, I left this overnight and thought about what I wanted to continue doing. And with the purple and lavender, instead of blue, I want to go with some pinks and some nice, pretty pink pansies. I had a beautiful selection last year in my garden, and they were called Antique Shades Pink. And I just love them, and I thought that would be perfect with these purples. Now, today, I'm going to start with continuing on with that one. Now, if you recall, that was dioxazine purple and lavender. Well, today I've decided that I would add in, this is just purple. This is a folk art color, and it's just, like I said, called plain old purple. And this is a regular folk art, not a multi-surface. So because the dioxazine purple was so thick and dry, it just makes it flow a little bit easier without having to add too much water to have the purple there. And the purple's nice and dark. Not as dark as the dioxazine, but it will all work. So I'm going to go over these to make them more opaque. And I try not to splay my paintbrush too much, because that's what creates a dry edge many times. And this, I switched to a 1/2 inch Royal instead of the number 12 flat, because I wanted the pansies to be a little bit larger without having to really work hard for it by really pressing the brush down. And so I figured this would work as a better brush for that for now. So every time I go away, I'm redouble loading my brush, and then I'm just going to go over. I don't try to be perfect to go over them. I just want it to create the opacity there. And you notice how that is opaque now, and I will see if I can do the side strokes quickly without dragging too much of the dark in it, because that's the lavender and the dioxazine with the lavender on the outside. And I got a little too much in my brush, but that works good. And I just flipped my brush over instead of reloading, because the other side still had plenty. So this one's not quite as opaque as that one, and I can come back and do that one again later. So I'm going to come down to this one out here. This was the half one. Let me get it up here in your vision. And so I'm just going to go back over that to make it opaque. And that one was the lavender and light lavender. There wasn't enough contrast. So I'm going to go in with the light lavender and the purple. And then that will work for me. So light lavender and the purple. And I wanted to keep these smaller, so that's why I'm not pressing quite as hard. That you could, if you had a hard time keeping it smaller, is you could go in with the number 12 brush. So let me go in and go over this one. So that's fine. That will work. So actually these could have been a little closer together, overlapping. But no two pansies are alike, just like no two roses are alike, etc. So let's see where I want to put a pink one. I think I want to put a pink one right here. Now I tested out a couple of pinks, and one of them is, let me see, this is a new to me pink. This one is graffiti pink, but you can use any pink that you like. That one's a medium tone. This one is plantation rose, and that's what that one right there is. This is the graffiti pink, and this is the plantation rose, which is a real soft color. And I'm going to have, this is ivory white. You could use wicker white if you wish. So we're going to do some very different pansies and do them in the pink. Maybe one right here. The brown may show through, but I can go over it twice. And first I'm going to do the, oh, this is already getting thick on me. The graffiti pink with the ivory. I'm double loading my brush. Ivory white and the graffiti pink. And I'm going to go in with, maybe I'll do this one pink. Let me do that one pink. Since I already got the back started. And then come back over it. You see how that was kind of dry out there? I can just go back over it, or I can wait and go over it later, but let me see if I can go back over it now. Yeah, that helped it a little bit. Okay, there's the back pedals. Now this was going to be a partial one, but I'm changing my mind. I'm going to go ahead and make it a full one just because I'm changing up the colors. So now I'm doing with the pink on the outside and the white on the inside, and I just stuck my finger down in that one. So this one needs to be fixed. I'm not liking that one. Be sure to go over any of them that you don't really like. But don't expect them all to be perfect. They're going to be a little bit different. Each one, you see how this one is a little bit higher than that one? That's great. If you look at pictures of your pansies, they are all different shapes, sizes. Sometimes they have a missing petal. Now I'm going to come around. The white is on the outside. And I totally did that wrong. I wanted it more rounded. So I'm going to come from the center, say this is the center, and I'm going to bring it all the way around and drag it up. I'm checking to see if I have good contrast there. So there's my pink one. So right here, this one, I'm going to do this side pedal again and improve its looks. I may have to turn this so I get a good angle. See how it's improving the opacity, and I don't mind I didn't cover that exactly. That gives it some dimension. It almost provides a shadow there for it. And I'm going to clean up that little bit of glob there. And I'm going to think about where the next pink one is. I could leave that a partial because I could have a bit of pink come over that or some greenery to give it a little bit different look. Or I could do a truncated petal, like a petal's been turned up, flipped up. And how I would do that, I would bring this, I would start like here, and slide, press, and then slide back down. Slide, press, slide, and you can see through that there, but I will go over it later after it dries to make it opaque. While I'm waiting for some things to dry and consider where I'm going to put my other pansy, I'm going to put in some greenery. I have my two favorite greens right now. This is Citrus and Thicket. You can use whatever light and dark green you like, but I'm just going to get a little bit of citrus on my brush, and I'm just going to wiggle some green in there. I'm not going to be too precise. I just want it to be a good backdrop. Now I double loaded some Citrus and Thicket on my brush. I went to my number 12 flat, and I can add like a little slider leaf here and there just to give it a little indication of a leaf. You don't have to drag a stem in or line if you don't want to, but you can. So I'm considering where things are at, and this one I may want a leaf coming out from it. Just did my typical slider or my scallop leaf. I have an entire video and blog post on painting leaves if you want to refer to that for extra information. I'm going to just touch a dab of the Thicket in there to pull it right up there to the pansy. Many times I'll go in, if I know where my placement of my flowers are, I'll go in and do the leaves first, leaves and greenery, and then put on my flowers, and that way it sets the greenery to the back more. So I'm thinking there's a flower here. This will be just in the background, and or I can also do some leaves here. Kind of set that to the back and just add them in. You can put it where you think it needs to be. And if I'm going to have a petunia or a pansy right there, maybe have another leaf coming out here. Now for my preference, I will go back over these to get opacity. But I'm just placing them right now. Now if I have a good chisel edge on my brush, let me see if I do. I can drag down some stems where some buds will be coming off, or even just some leaves. And we can have it come down, just frothy little greenery. Even some can go up behind the handlebars if we want, or over. Like this one can go over. A little thick there. This can have a little I got a little bit of the dark on the light side, so I'm just going to wipe my brush off on a towel. So I didn't rinse it, I just wiped it, and I'll reload it so that I have the two definite greens. And I'll go ahead and drag the stems in there. This needs a little bit of dark green going in there. Okay, so if that's going to have a pansy there, probably a pink one, a lighter pink than that one. And so I can have a leaf coming out this direction. Sorry if I got out when I came down here, but I just ended some of the little stems here. You can actually drag some down further, or I might just have petals falling down there. So let's see, right here. So I'm thinking a pansy right here, so I could have a leaf coming out right here. And let me reload. I got to reach across because I'm on the other side of the camera. Didn't want to have to move all the painting. And then, so there's another leaf there. Now I'm thinking, now you can put your greenery wherever you desire. So if you want it different, then go right ahead. I want some greenery up here. So I want it like it's coming up here. Little fronds, and then maybe some leaves. Okay, now up here I think I'm going to go with some smaller leaves, so that's why I haven't put the slider leaves with this. I think I'm going to go, I like the filbert brush, the effect it has, because it has kind of a rounded base. And how I load the filbert, set my, is for the leaves, oh that's not a filbert. One moment, I will find my filbert. So here is, this is a number 4 Royal Majestic filbert, and this one is a number 8. I know I have a 6 somewhere here, but I'm not going to hunt it down. So to load it, I load one side and then the other side. One with the dark green, one with the light green. And then I just make slider leaves. And the dark green's not really coming through, so I need to load more dark green. And you can start on whichever side you want. You see how they're more rounded? And I do like that effect sometimes. And if you want even smaller leaves, you can switch to the number 4. And that gives real delicate leaves. So load it the same way, one side the light green, the other side with the dark. And you see how it just gives these little delicate leaves. And so when you have the different sizes, it just gives it a little more interest. I'm moving this so you can see down here. So I'll put some of these little tiny leaves down at the ends of these little fronds coming down. Or vines, whatever you want to call it. You can put them right on the stem or far away. You can even have a leaf or two coming just like dropping down. You don't even have to have it touched to a vine. So I have a few draping down or dripping down. So I got it right here where I want to do the other pink pansy, and then something right here to cover over the area of the basket that I didn't paint. So I want an odd number. You don't have to have an odd number, but I do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to do the other pink pansy in a minute. I got to let that leaf dry and I'm going to go over it. So I think these leaves are dry enough for me to go over to get the opacity I want. So I'm double loading my number 12 flat with the 2 greens. So you see there. Okay, so this one I go over and I just follow loosely the previous undercoat of the leaf. And then here I'm going to do the same. And I just wiggle, wiggle, and pull to the point. And you see how much more opaque that is? I like them to be a bit more opaque myself. You could go with them with the background shining through if you like to. It's not the end of the world. But it all works. I want this one to kind of come up around here. So I'll bring that up. Alrighty. So that leaf is done. Let's see if this leaf that one might be dry enough that I can go ahead and go over it. So let us see. Yeah, it's not lifting the paint, thankfully. Every time I go away, I'm reloading, double loading my brush each time. There. I don't always drag stem in, but if you need to clean up your centers for whatever reason, you can. And many times you will. Sometimes it gets a little gloppy in the centers. So there's those leaves. This one's kind of pointing in. I need one pointing out from there to draw the eye in that direction. So I'm running out of thicket. So I need this one to go like this. There we go. And this leaf is probably going to be obscured by some things anyways, so not the end of the world. I can add more leaves in here, or I could actually add some buds of the pansies. Well, let everything dry so I quit messing things up. And I'm going to fix this, or just go over this a little bit, because I don't like the way that back petal looks. So I'm just going to go ahead and restate that petal in the back. And then this petal. And that one really was goofy. So I got to redo that one completely. There. I'm liking that better. And now I have to do the others because this comes out at the side and comes in. So actually I'm fixing the entire pansy, and it's totally doable with acrylics because they dry so quickly. And this one, go this way. Now that one was probably better done with the larger brush because I'm really having to press to get what the size I want. And that's all good. But you see how I kind of muddied that up? That's okay. I can come back a little bit later with just white on my brush and go along the edge to brighten that up. That's actually ivory white. So I'm liking that a little bit better, and it put that greenery to the background like I wanted it. And it overlapped this one a little bit, which is just perfect. Okay, so in here. So this one down here, I'm going to turn this. That one is one that's facing downwards, and it's only a partial. So I'm going to load my brush with my lavender or light lavender and my purple. Now it's starting to get a little dry. I had spritzed my palette. I'm going to get a little bit of that dioxazine. I want it good and dark. And this is going to come like this. Like here is a petal where it's flipped that way, and this is going to have a little green dot, like the stamens coming there. So here's my green. I don't know if it's still, yeah. And I'm just going to put a little dot there, and then that's where this comes out. You could actually draw a whole new stem. Hopefully my palette wasn't in your way. Draw a whole new stem coming up. And there you have your backwards facing flower. And I might want, like down here, a partial pink one too, just to keep the pinks and the purples going through evenly, or over here have it, because I want kind of the flow like that. So I think I will do, maybe I'll do the plantation pink with the ivory white. I'm loading it. This is the plantation pink by ivory white. It looks like I need to get fresh white on my palette because it's getting muddied up. This is, so I will put it, I'm trying to find a clean spot on my palette here. Probably need to get a new one out or go to the green. Okay, plantation pink, ivory white. And I'm just blending it into my brush. Nice subtle color. And we can have like a partial here. I might take it a little bit to cover the green. It looks like it's doing okay. So we'll let that dry before we come in with the other color. I think I need that a little bit wider. Excuse me, a little bit wider. So, and then have the other coming across. Okay, it's going to be very subtle, but perfect. Okay, so that one's getting started there. So I want the plantation pink pansy in here, but I want the greenery set to the back. So I'm going to have to really decide where I want that. So I'm just going to go right into the ivory and see how, I think right here would be the perfect spot. It's not on the same plane. It's a little bit lower than that one. It's not on the same plane as this one. It's a little bit higher. And that's where I will put that pansy. So that gives me an idea of where to add some greenery, like some leaves. And really, pansy leaves are more rounded. They're not pointy, but is all good. I'm going to add some greens back to my palette here, and I'm going to show you what an actual pansy leaf looks like. It's more rounded, like I said, and in the long run it's not a big deal, but some people do prefer to go for something a little more realistic with their leaves. So I have my number 12 brush still, double loading with the 2 greens just like I had been. I'm really working some paint into my brush, getting it plenty full without getting it overloaded. So since this one is dry, I can come along and add my leaf. And they're a little bit long, and then they come around like that. They're not pointy. Now the purple's showing through, which means I will have to come back over that and do it again. So I can do a nice leaf coming down here, and then some buds can come over it. So if you don't want to do the rounded leaf, go ahead and do the scallop leaf. I just wanted to show you that. And the scallop leaf works just fine because the indication of a pansy is the actual pansy itself. So let me do this. I'll have a scallop leaf there. I reload my brush for each side, and again this will be gone over to make it more opaque. And down this way. Doesn't matter, it goes over that. There's all kinds of leaves that go over top of each other, etc. Now I'm going to just fill in a little bit here. I said it before that normally I go in and I put the greenery in, I might pounce in some, etc., and then it's all, the greenery's done. And then I back base paint my pansies over that with a white or an ivory, and then I go over top of it with the color, and then that way the greenery is in the background already. So I'm just going to create some more vines here coming from here, just to give it some flow there. Blend it all together, and we'll just do some stems in here. We don't want that floating up there. Add a little bit. This one needs to be redone, so it's opaque. Now these larger paintings do take more time than the smaller ones that I do. I've done lots of individual flowers to show you how to paint them, and that way you could come in and bring any of those flowers. You could do roses, you could do tulips, you could do violets, what other thing? I have daisies. You could even mix the daisies with these flowers. You could do mixed flowers. I wanted to focus on just the pansies today for this spring painting, and I'm not liking that leaf coming down here, but it's all good. We'll see. I might put another pansy, part of a pansy there, and so we're getting some flow. And I'll show you how to do some buds. So I'm going to have them facing downwards. Let me see if there's any other green that need to go over while I have green on my brush. Nope, we're all good. In fact, I could turn this leaf around while I'm at it. I told you I didn't like the way it was going, so I'll show you how you can change it, and let's hope it works out. Let me move it so I can get a good angle at it. Okay, so here's the leaf I want to change. I'm just going to come up this direction, and I'm going to go like that. And it's okay if it comes over that pansy. I like how it sets it to the background. And I didn't have a good definition on that of the dark because I've got my colors muddied. But it's kind of a subtle background leaf, so it's not a huge deal. If I wanted to drag in a stem, clean up that center, I can. There you have your hint of your leaf. I never did finish that piece there, doggone it. So I can still do that. So I wanted to go over it, make it opaque, and it had the purple and the lavender, light lavender, and I'm running out of the light lavender. I probably, since this is a long painting, should have my wet palette, oh, doggone it, my Masterson's Stay Wet palette, which really works well. So I'm just going to come in here and restate that. The leaf is covering over part of it, so not a big deal that I didn't finish it going down here, but I could. I could do that and fill that back in with purple, and then that leaf is no longer going over top of it. Okay. And I can fix this leaf too, if I want to. Get it fixed where it matches all the others instead of being more rounded. Thicket has gotten all contaminated, but I think it's enough to, here we go. So we're good on that. Okay, so I think this is dry enough that I can go ahead and do my pansy there. Everything else is good. Oh, I did say I was going to give you some buds, but let's go ahead and do that pansy. I want to do my 1/2 inch brush because I want to be able to really press and make a good size pansy. Instead of fighting with drying paint, I'm going to put out some fresh plantation pink and some fresh ivory white. And I'm going to load my brush. Keep loading it till I like, it's probably, I want 2/3 up to the ferrule. Just keep loading it in there. Okay, so we're going to start with the, I think I want the darker pink on the outside, and maybe that one will be, that one's facing that way, that one's kind of facing that way, so let's have this one facing this way. I might want to make those a little bit more scallopy. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Very good. Get it. As I said before, every time I go away from the camera, I'm reloading my brush. So that one, I want that one even more scallopy. It's too, sorry, getting out of the camera almost. It's too skimpy. I want it rounder, so I want to bring it down. There, that's what I want. And I want there to be a little bit of definition between the two, so I'm going to come back in with some of the darker pink and add that on there. Now I'm going to flip my brush over, and we're going to go, this is the center, do the outside, side petals, and I did get this one a little too, there, got a little too bright. Okay, now I'm going to come over with the white, and then this is where the big bottom petal is going to be. Now I am going to mix in, and I'm going to mix it this time so it doesn't make the streakiness, but I want it to be a bit darker than the others, so it has some good definition. And there, I'm really making, this is a really wide scallop stroke. And if it doesn't go quite far enough for me, over to the other side, then I'll come this way a little bit and add some more. Now here's the center. There, that's pretty much a focal point flower now. So I have this half flower, which I need to go back over. I'm sorry I kicked the camera. And I'm going back into the plantation and the wicker or the ivory white. I usually use wicker white, and that's why I had said that. So we're going to get this one right over here, and we're going to redo that. I'm trying to get it at a good angle for you. That's good. And then this way. And then we'll do like we did the purple one down here. This purple one down here. We'll give it a flipped over petal. I'm getting pink and white double loaded on my brush. And then I was just going to do a little scallop stroke. And there's the center, where we will put a touch of green to make it be the bottom showing. So there we have that one. Now step back and take a look at it. Does it look even? It doesn't look even. It looks kind of heavier over here. So I need to decide if I want to put like a whole pansy there, or just go with it. Put like maybe one of these hanging down here, and that one's a little further away, so of course this would be bigger. So kind of think of what your way through it. And it could be just fine the way it is, and I'm overthinking it. I could even put like a pansy here, like one of the purple pansies here, lighter purple like that one, and obscure this leaf, and even partial that flower, but you just gotta play with it and think about it. Okay, until I come to a conclusion or figure out what I want to do there, I could also maybe, I don't know, I'm just having a hard time with this today. Okay, after looking at it for a while and debating, I'm going to put a purple pansy there. I went over it, made it a little shape with the ivory, and I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll put my purple pansy there. And so in the meantime, I never did finish showing you how to do these. So instead of leaving these the plain pink like I was going to, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I add that little bit of detail normally on the purple. And I need a little bit of a darker pink to make those, even though this is, you see how these ended up blending very, instead of being distinctly different, but that's the way it flies. And so I'm going to go into the graffiti pink, and I'm going to put some on my brush. You notice I'm getting, just pulling it from the edge, and I want a chisel edge on my brush. Now this is the center, and this is the bottom, and these are the side petals. So I want to put some of these coming, radiating out to make it distinctly darker there. And then I'm going to do it down off here, so it has some little detail there too. Oh, my palette just flipped. So I need to move this here, and I'm just going to, from the center, radiate these little whiskers out. And it just gives it a little bit of that detail. So there we have that, and I'll do it on this other one as well. Now this is the center here, and I'm just going to kind of bring it out. Now if you look at my pansy tutorial, This is still really wet, so it's kind of dragging into it. I do them a little bit differently. This just shows how there's many ways to do it and still get the look or feel of a pansy. This is not realism. I'm giving the effect of a pansy, so an impression of a pansy, and that's really what I am going for with this. So there is that little center part that gives it a little bit of darkening there, and then I'm going to use a pale yellow. You can use a bright yellow if you want. And I'm just going to get a bit on the corner of my brush. You can use a stylus for this if you prefer. And right here, I'm just going to dip the corner of my brush in, and then I'm going to take it to the center. I'll take it to the center of that lavender, and then right here, center of this pink. And then I'll do it the center of this pink. And even on this one up here, because there's still a spot there. So that gives you the idea of the center. And I'm going to get my liner brush really quick. And I'll show you a little detail. It just adds a little touch to the pansy. On these, sometimes I do it with a darker color, but on these I'm going to do it with white, and it's going to be very subtle. Or you could do it with a darker yellow, or even, I've seen some do it with an orangish, depending on, I'm making sure I have a point on my brush. So here's the center, and you make an upside down V. It's not really showing up, but I'm trying to be very, very careful because I don't want it to be a big glob. If you want this to kind of delineate a line of that bottom petal, you can do that. And this one too. See, I'm dragging that yellow. I could wait till it's dry. And so let me see. I'm trying not to get my hand in anything, but it's just the added details that pull it all together. I'm a little bit far away from this one, so let's see how I do. Good enough. And sometimes I even put a little dot of a darker color right here at the apex, but I'm not going to worry about doing that today. We're going to keep it subtle and understated. Okay, so there are those pansies. It's not quite dry. I'm going to put it where it can dry, and then we'll come back and we'll finish doing that lavender pansy and see how it pulls it all together. Now my camera timed out on me and I didn't realize it, but all that I did while waiting for this to dry was put the little buds in, and some little buds there, and I used my filbert, my Royal Majestic number 8 filbert, and I just double loaded. I double loaded the brush. Here's a purple one, and this is purple and light lavender. And that's how I load the brush. One side has one color, one the other. And I just do the teardrop stroke. You notice how I put it down, press, drag, lift. I'll reload a little bit. And press, drag, lift. And then all these others are the same. So let me pull it down, make sure you can see. And here, this one, and then this one. And I do flip the brush over between strokes. That way I don't have to go and reload again. So here, and here. And down here. And I have a couple further on down on the painting, just kind of pulling that color down. I don't even know if I will add calyx to that, but how I do the calyx for those. Now I did some in pink too. We'll come back and do those, but I'm going to do the calyx on the purples just to show you. Make sure my camera's not timing out again. Okay, I think my camera card was full and that's why it was doing it. So I'm going to load with the green, touch a little bit in that, load it. You notice how streaky it is. That's what I'm aiming for. And I make sure it's going to flow from the brush. Well, and I twist and bring it to a point. So what I do is I touch and pull, and that gives it that. Look, you could also go like this. You can leave it with just the two, the V shape, or you can go ahead and add a center. And if you pull a little bit of the purple in, don't worry about it. Just go back, reload your green, and pull up. Get a little bit more water in my brush. And if you don't like the purple mixing in and it kind of starts mudding it up, just rinse out your brush and start again. So on these, I actually do a little bit different stroke, so it gives it more of a holder, however you pronounce that, or whatever it is. So I have, here's my number 4 Royal Majestic. You can do this with a small flat too. And what I do is I just kind of encapsulate the bud. It's still too wet to really show up, so I should wait. Maybe I'll do it on this one since it's dry. So I just kind of encapsulate that with the stroke in green. It's the same stroke as the actual flower bud, but it's with the smaller brush. And then I would drag in a calyx. You can do that with the liner or with the edge of a flat brush. And I don't mean calyx, I mean a stem. And just indication of a stem. It doesn't show up real great against the other greens, but it is there and the eye will pick it up. So that's how you do the stems and the buds. And I will go through, and when the purples are all dry, I will add more stems and calyxes. So up here, I think I want to add a few of the pink buds just so there's it's all cohesive. So I'm going to go into my 2 pinks, my darker pink. I accidentally put it on 2 sides. I meant one side. And then just one over there and one over here. Maybe one over there. And that way we're keeping all the colors moving around on here. So that being said, I need to finish this lavender and purple pansy. I don't know if you can see this very well, but I kind of made a muddy spot there. And I just want to go over it a little bit with lavender. I only have the lavender on one corner. It's actually light lavender. And I'm just going to bring it in here and go over that little spot where I kind of got some muddy green in there. And then I'll go ahead and re-accent that, and it just fixes it to my mind. You might not have even noticed it, but it was kind of bugging me, so I had to fix it. So don't be afraid to try to fix things. Sometimes you'll make them worse, sometimes you won't. So don't be afraid to try. So let's see. Okay, let's get this one done. I've been wanting to do that one. I'm going to go ahead with my 1/2-inch brush. I'm going to go into the purple and the light lavender, and I'm going to double load my brush and just really fill it up so it doesn't drag. And I'll do a pansy. Now this one's kind of aiming this one. This one I might tilt a little bit this way because this one's straight up and down. So I'll go ahead and I'll do the dark on the back side. maybe I'll do it opposite. I don't have the dark on the outside, so maybe I'll do the light on the inside, or on the outside of this, and then go on down from there. That's looking good. Now we'll switch directions, and this will go over that little spot there that I created a mess with. And I've got a lot of paint on my brush, so it's kind of making ridges, but it all comes out in the wash. So let me do this. Now it looks like, you know, I'm going to need to go over it again, so I will let that dry. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and finish up the calyxes on these other buds. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the bud things, and then see if I want to put in any more vines and leaves to finish it off. So I have my liner. I have the two colors of green on it. I've got my paint pretty much inky, and I'm just going to finish out these. And I may speed this up because it can be pretty boring to watch it over and over and over again. Some of them I may just pull a stem to. Okay, I think that's all of them. And you might want to pull some little vines in, just some squiggly vines that don't have anything attached. Just give them a little wisp here and there. And you can add some tiny leaves later in other areas and see how it's all flowing. And this part, this backward flower, never got its little stem. And we're doing good. No, I'm not going to do anything there. Okay. So I haven't added any tinier buds with the smaller filbert, which we can add some little petals here and there. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can finish out that pansy. Get it done and see how it's looking. I need some light lavender on my palette. Now the background is not quite opaque, so I'm going to go ahead and go over that, even though I did started the side petals. And I'm just going to go and put those in there. Now if I wanted it to, I could let that back petal dry before adding the next. There'll be more differentiation in the colors, but I'm getting to the point where I just want to get this done. So I'm just going to proceed. And we'll do this pansy right here. Petal. And then I'll do the other side. A little gloppy in the middle, that's okay. And then we'll come and do this bottom one. I want lots of lavender. And it's going to be a big stroke, so I need to reload in between and come from this side as well. I'm terrible at backward strokes, so I'll probably have to go over it again and finish it up. There. we're all good. And I'm going to put these little strokes inside of there once it's more dry, so I'm not blending it in. And I'm going to go put it under a fan so I can get it dried fast and I can get it done. Okay, let's finish that last pansy up. And I am going to go in with the dark purple on my brush only. And I'm just going to pull it, these little things, right from the center here. It's not completely dry, but it's still going to do the job for me. I'm not going to do it on the sides like I had on the others. I'm just going to do it right there at the center. Darken that a little bit. And I'm going to come back in with the yellow on the corner of my brush. And give it a little dot there. Dot a little more. And then we will come in with the ivory white, or whatever white you desire, and the inky paint on the liner. Not too inky because you want it to make that upside down V. And it's kind of blending in, so I need to restate it. That's what happens when you're going over wet. And there you have your final pansy. Now you can go in and tweak things all you want, and it could be a little off balanced. You could figure out how you could balance it, or you could just love it the way it is and not worry about it. I still haven't put in any more greenery. I think I want a little bit, some little tiny leaves adding up here. Just put them in faintly. And what I mean faintly is just here and there, and they don't even have to be attached to anything. They just kind of flow along. Pull your eye down. And I even haven't done like the small little buds with the smaller filbert yet. Like add little leaves here and there to give it an airy quality of some little wisps. And some such things. So I've got the little brush here. I'll go in and I'll do some little pink buds or petals. Say like little petals going down. I'm trying not to bump things off my table with my canvas. So, oops, I didn't mean to get it that long. And one thing great about this is the multi-surface paint underneath there. You can just come in and damp paper towel and wipe it off. It works. So this background is one of my tutorials on how to do a neutral gray background. And I use different colors to do that. So you can look for that and use it on all kinds of different paintings. So almost like confetti there, working around some little buds. Oh, a little too wet, work in there. And I'll have a couple of these down here. Now here, just a little bit of that graphite is left, showing through where I didn't go over it with the black. And I want to show you how to fix that really quick. Let me see if you can see that down there. I have a wet Q-tip. I've also done this with paper towels, but I just go right along there and I scrub that graphite off. And of course, when you know it, it's not coming off this time. Oh, there it goes. There, it went. And right down here was some. I didn't pull the tire down quite as far as it is on the pattern. So, it's just a little tip. If you can't find your magic rub eraser, if you have magic rub eraser, that really takes it off well. But So it does that. So you can fix little things like that. And there we have our painting. I'm going to set it up on my easel, take a picture, and happy painting. And we're going to do more bicycles. I'm going to do several different colors and several different versions. So I hope you enjoyed this. And I had fun doing it, even though it took me forever to get it done. And happy painting, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.